Hello and welcome to the cliffs near the beach where I live. And today I thought I'd come out of the office to make this video about how we can improve as photographers. And when I say we, I mean me. This video isn't aimed at anybody else, but you're just here along for the ride, okay? This is a video from Roy to Roy about how I can improve, because I know I've got a long way to go as a photographer and a lot of growth in my life as a photographer before I become the perfect photographer, which of course nobody ever is. And I don't think it matters whether you're a beginner or a complete seasoned pro. I hope there'll be something that will make you think in this video, because there's always stuff for us all to learn, right? This has got nothing to do with camera equipment, nothing to do with spending money, by the way. The first thing that we're going to talk about is technical knowledge, what we already know and refining what we already know and learning new stuff. And technical ability is really important in photography because it allows us to get what's the creative ideas that are in our head out into our photographs, and hopefully sharp and well exposed and presentable in the best way that they can be shown. And so it's really important to know some technical skills, and everyone is at a different place on their photography journey, but I surprise myself by how much stuff I still don't know and how much learning I actually do on a day-by-day basis of continuing my photographic journey. And this could be anything from, if you're a complete beginner or a novice or an intermediate, maybe you've struggled with manual exposure, maybe you struggle with how shutter speeds and apertures and ISO work together. Maybe that's something you need to iron out. Maybe that's something you need to spend some time refining that technical skill so that you've got it absolutely down when you absolutely need it on a shoot. And by that I mean, look around us. If 100 ISO, if the light today is 125th of a second at f8, but I don't want to shoot at f8, I want to shoot at 5.6. What shutter speed should I be using? Now, if you can't answer that question really quickly, then you need to spend some time working that stuff out. I'm not going to tell you how to, you can find that out anywhere, but you need to get that stuff down so that you know it. And I know some photographers will think, oh no, I'm not worried about that, and that's cool. But I think if you're interested in photography, you should at least have a basic knowledge of exposure. So I think it will help you to go through that process. Maybe you've got all that stuff down already. Maybe you know your apertures from your f-stops and your ISO from your shutter speeds, and you are just kind of a very experienced professional photographer, but maybe you've just got a new camera, and maybe you have not spent the time going through the manual to understand every single thing that camera can do to help you get the best possible pictures from it under nearly every circumstance. And maybe you just need to sit down with your manual and go through the settings for 1 hour, and then you will learn something and you will make that camera work a little bit better next time you go out to do a job or to take a picture, and your photography will either improve or certainly the process will become slightly easier. Or maybe there's some software that you need to use to learn to use. Maybe there's a setting in Lightroom that you're unsure of, or maybe there's who doesn't have something in Photoshop that they need to learn. But these things, ease the path towards better photography. It's not everything. Technical skills are not everything, but it is something that is well worth spending some time. And I talk quite often about creating a bionic connection with your camera equipment, and by that I mean that it becomes second nature. You can change all the settings, you can do everything that you need to do as second nature. You're not going to have to spend your time looking down or looking in the instruction manual. It all becomes bionic. And so when the picture taking circumstances arrive, you're just kind of acting almost instinctively. It's worth spending time learning the technical skills to make that bionic connection happen. And for me, there's a couple of things that I'm learning at the moment, which are, one, I've just got a new mobile lighting kit, and I've just added a few more bits and pieces to that, and so I'm spending time learning how to use that for when I next go on location on Friday. And so I like to spend a lot of time dry testing kit before shoots to make sure that when I'm actually on location, I don't have any trip over points, or there'll always be some trip over points, but I know that I'm at least mediumly equipped to deal with trip over points. And the next thing that I'm working on is, last year I became a qualified drone pilot. I've been working with drones for many years, but I became qualified last year. And so I spend a lot of time working with my drones, working on the settings, working on different flight patterns, and working out how to get the best possible image quality from my drones. And I have a challenge for you. It's one thing. Let me know, in the comments, or don't let me know. Don't do this if you don't want to. But one technical thing that you can learn. Everyone will be at different places. Let me know what it is that you're going to do and how the outcome is. One thing, one technical thing, either learn it or refine the skills that you've already got. Speaking of drones, okay, so the next thing I want to talk about is creativity and inspiration. And this is vital for photography, and it's really important to keep honing and learning in order for us to improve as photographers. And I've always said that, technicality and creativity need to be grown at roughly the same speed for photographers, because otherwise you get out of balance and then your pictures become technically good but a bit dull, or really creative but not technically good enough to print. And so they need to be grown at roughly the same time. So while we're going to spend some time learning our technical skills, we'll also talk about how we can keep our creativity and inspiration in check and moving forward. Because actually it's easy to lose both creativity and inspiration and end up in a bit of a mess. Now, I've learned some skills over the years that I need to fuel my own creativity and inspiration, and I'll share those with you in a minute. And I think that everyone will have different ways. I don't know if everybody is the same, and it'd be interesting to hear your perspective, but there's an obvious thing of where people seek inspiration from, and that's from other photographers. And I think that's very cool to do, but there is a big kind of caveat around that you need to be cautious, because you can easily get caught up in looking at lots of other people's work, feel like you're not quite as good as them, and then go into a kind of turmoil of self-pity and doubt. And I think everybody can probably relate to that in one form or another. So you need to be cautious, and you need to just judge yourself against who you were yesterday, who you are as a photographer growing, rather than who someone else is today. I think that Jordan Peterson said that, and I think it's really important that it's very valid to photographers in this day and age with so much photography flying around on the net. So what do? I look at other photographers' work. I used to much more when I was much younger. I got a lot of inspiration from other photographers, but generally from looking at their published work, rather than looking at social media of this constant flow. So there'd be photographers that I would look at their work in magazines or in books or in newspapers, and I would really like their work and it would inspire me. But I don't know quite how the balance works now, in terms of that was then, and that was in that format, and now we just have this kind of barrage of social media. So I think you have to be a bit cautious. But look at other photographers' work, that's one way of doing it. But the thing that, inspires me is just finding new ways of looking at the world. If I have to get out and go to a new place, go to a place where the light falls from a different angle, or read a book that I don't normally read, or go to an exhibition that I wouldn't normally go to, something that just changes my perspective slightly, or just doing odd stuff. I do quite a lot of odd stuff. It's probably the best way of describing it. Like this right now, I'm sitting in my van talking to a camera, and there's people walking past wondering this is an odd thing to do. I do lots of odd stuff. If you're seeking inspiration, don't spend your time looking at a little screen. Get out and go somewhere different. Go for a walk somewhere that you haven't been before. Jump in a river somewhere. Cover yourself in mud. Listen to music that you don't normally listen to. Draw a picture. Write something down. Read a book or a magazine or a newspaper that you don't normally read. Watch a film that you wouldn't normally watch. Go out at an odd time of the day. Get up in the middle of the night and walk around your neighbourhood listening to some classical music. You have to change something about your own existence in order to become inspired or creative. That's for me. Everyone will be different, but hopefully you might get something from this as well. And when I change that something inside me, something changes, and then that comes out in my photography. So if I'm walking at sunrise and I see the light hitting a colour, that will stick somewhere, and that will then apply when I'm trying to make a creative decision, a shoot later that day or next week or the next month. They go in and they kind of process around and keep your creativity growing. So that would be my advice, and my practical challenge to you is to try and find something to do that is different. Try and find something that's a bit odd to do that you've never done before. Put some music on and put some classical music on your headphones and walk around your neighborhood at 4 o'clock in the morning for half an hour. Or did I just say that? Maybe I said it twice, in which case it's even more important to do it. That's what I'm going to be doing tomorrow. Or late at night. You know, late at night is a great time. And you just see the world in a different place. Take a drive around your town at 2 o'clock in the morning. You know, odd stuff, do some weird stuff and see if it has any benefit at all to your creative flow and your inspiration, because these things are important to hang on to and they're important to grow. So the next thing I want to talk about is understanding. And I know that's a bit of a weird thing to talk about when we're talking about photography, because it's got nothing to do with lenses or apertures or any of those things. But it's probably the thing that's helped me grow the most when I think of my years as a photographer. And it's all about understanding the world around us and all of the different things that make up the rich tapestry of the world that we live in, and helping us kind of decipher it as we move forward as photographers, because that's ultimately what we're trying to do, sort of translate the world and capture a spirit of the time or a place or of an event. And sometimes that's difficult, you know, it's very difficult, especially if you've got a very closed mind. And so I think it's really important that we open our minds and constantly seek new things, look deep into nature, look around us, talk to people, and constantly try and sort of evolve, and not from a judgmental point of view, but just to kind of keep an open mind and learn things and understand the world a little bit more. We'll never get there all the way because it's a constant journey, obviously. But, you know, don't think that you already know enough. You know, constantly keep searching and looking for connection and signal in the world. And there's a couple of practical ways that you can do that. One is to just spend time in nature, just to get outside, get away from the screens, get away from your cameras, just get out into nature, touch nature, get involved, and that you can obviously make a connection there. And then the next way is to talk to people. I'm one of those people that spends a lot of time talking to random strangers. Some people might consider that a little bit odd. I know my children find it very embarrassing, but it's a skill that I've developed over the years, and I'm really glad that I have, because it's led to having some really amazing conversations with some really amazing people and really, you know, discovering some of the world's most finest wisdom, I guess. And that's a hard thing to do for some people. So my challenge for you is, next time you're out and about, is to start a conversation with a random stranger. Try and find out something that you didn't know before. And I'm not talking about being nosy or judgmental about someone else's life. I'm talking about being inquisitive and, you know, trying to sort of listen to other people's perspectives about things. And maybe that will interpret into your photography in some way, shape or form that may have a positive outcome for you. I hope you've enjoyed watching this. Thank you very much. Goodbye.